welcome back from spring break. Hopefully you're ready to e-learn. I miss seeing all your faces. This is kind of a new normal now, so make sure that you email me with any questions that you have. We're going to review factoring today. At the top here, you can see all of the rules that we learned before you left for spring break. So these are the rules for our factoring. If the last term is positive, the signs stay the same. If the last term is negative, the signs are different. What you guys have to pay particular attention to are the directions. So when your problem says find the greatest common factor, that's what you can divide every term by. So in this case, I can divide every term by 5. So my greatest common factor is 5. Every term does not have a letter, so I cannot take a letter out, only a number. On the second one, number 2, we're going to factor and check our smiles. Since this is a trinomial, we want to look at the first term and we want to look at the last term. The last term is negative, so the signs are going to be different. And x squared splits up x and x. And then we want to figure out what multiplies to give us negative 6, but adds to give us negative 5x. So what multiplies to give us negative 6? Well, we can have negative 3 and positive 2. We can have positive 3 and negative 2. We can have negative 6 and positive 1. Or we can have positive 6 and negative 1. Those multiply to give us negative 6. So now we want to figure out which one would add to give us negative 5. And it's negative 6 and positive 1. So since the 1 is positive, we're going to put it with the plus sign. Since the 6 is negative, it goes with the minus sign. After you're done factoring, you always want to check your smiles. So you check the little smile, and that gives you 1x. You check the big smile, and that gives you negative 6x. And when you add these two together, you get the middle term, which is negative 5x. Remember, when you're factoring differences of squares, your squares are two numbers that multiply to give you another number, but those two numbers have to be the same. So the only time you can factor a difference of squares is when you have a minus sign instead of the plus sign. So it has to be a difference of squares. So if you have a difference of squares, you can factor into two parentheses. X squared splits up x and x. Since the last term's negative, your signs are going to be different. And you have to use the two numbers that multiply to give you 16, but they're the same number. So it's going to be 4 and negative 4. The reason why you have to use the same number is because when you check your smiles, you get 4x and negative 4x, and those cancel to give you no middle term. When you're factoring squares, you have to have a minus sign, and it has to be a difference to be able to do the problem. But our final answer ends up being x plus 4, x minus 4. If you're trying to factor squares and there's a plus sign, remember these two perfect squares are having good times, and we're having good times. That means they're in love, so you cannot factor this, and this is said to be prime. So I told a story about this in class about the town of Squaresville. And when you're having bad times, you can split up. But when you split up, you still remember part of your good times and part of your bad times in your factors. When you're having good times only, you're in love and you don't split up at all. Your answer is prime. Last but not least, for our review of factoring notes, when the directions say factor completely, that means you're going to have to look for a greatest common factor first. The greatest common factor is what divides into all of your terms, and in this case it is 3x. They all can be divided by 3, and they all have an x. When you take out a GCF, that GCF goes outside the parentheses. You put what's left in one big parenthesis first. 3 divided by 3 is 1. X cubed divided by x is x squared. 3 divided by 3 is 1. X squared divided by x is x. And then 60 divided by 3 is 20, and x divided by x cancels. Now what you're going to do is you're going to look inside the trinomial and you're going to factor it. So to do that, you are going to drop down the 3x that's there already, so that doesn't disappear. You're going to look at the first term and you're going to look at the last term, and you're going to break it up into two parentheses. 1x squared splits up x and x. The last term's negative, so your signs are different. Now you have to multiply to give you negative 20. So multiply to give you negative 20. That's going to be negative 5 and positive 4, or positive 5 and negative 4. Do either one of those add to give you positive 1? The answer is yes, this one does. So I don't have to look at any other factors. I'm going to put the plus with the 5 and the minus with the 4. So this should be my final answer, but I need to go back and check my smiles. When I check my smiles, I get 5 times x is 5x. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And when you add those two together, it equals the positive 1x in the middle. So we got it right. So whenever the directions say factor completely, you always want to factor out a greatest common factor first. So now look at number 6. The GCF for number 6 is 3, but no letter this time. So the 3 goes outside the 1 parenthesis. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so you're just going to be left with x squared. And 300 divided by 3 is 100. You only have two items inside the parenthesis, so now you have to look just inside the parenthesis. And since there's only two terms, you're going to see if it's a difference of two perfect squares, and it is. So this 3 is going to drop down. You're going to break these two up because they're having bad times. X squared is going to split up x and x. The last term's negative, so your signs are different. And the factors of 100 are 10 and 10. Remember, when it's a perfect square, you want to use the same number. The reason why you want to do that is because when you check your smiles, you get a negative 10x and a positive 10x, and those equal 0 in the middle, and you don't have an x term. There's no x term up here, so you want that to go away. Please, please, please email me with any questions you have. You can rewind this. You can pause this video. You can go back and hear the explanation again. You have some homework that you need to do. it's on Canvas, and then you need to upload that homework assignment on Canvas so it can be graded. Thanks, guys. Let me know if you have questions.